No alien wanted to hire a single alien mother who was left on the street, but a human gave her a chance. The rain on Nuvatera didn't fall so much as it spiraled, thin silver strands looping in slow-motion arcs, like the sky was trying to knit itself a scarf and kept dropping the stitch. Sri adjusted the hood of her borrowed coat, which smelled faintly of boiled circuitry, and tightened her grip on her daughter's hand. Liney, ever the optimist, tried to catch the falling droplets with her tongue and declared it tastes like spicy metal, but not the good kind. They had been walking for hours. Their feet, one pair booted, the other wearing mismatched solar sandals found in a recycling chute, slapped against the plastcrete in weary rhythm. On this planet, sidewalks hummed faintly to guide the visually impaired, but Sri had learned that the vibrations also irritated her ears. Long, pointed, and sensitive enough to pick up the sound of sarcasm from 3 blocks away. They twitched involuntarily every time someone's hoverboard hissed past. "Are we poor now?" Liney asked cheerfully, as though it were just another category to tick off her interspecies bingo card, because the last vending drone didn't even try to scan us. Sri didn't answer. Not directly. She just pulled the girl a little closer and mumbled something about priorities and atmospheric credit fees, and how perhaps they shouldn't trust food that glowed brighter than the reactor core. Liney, unconvinced, nodded solemnly. So yes, the shop signs around them flickered in 37 dialects, many of which Sri recognized instantly. She had once translated interstellar treaties with the poise of a scholar and the patience of a fungus. Now she struggled to find a shop owner who would meet her eye, let alone offer employment. Being a single mother was frowned upon on her homeworld. Being a single mother who refused rebonding was grounds for social erasure. Being a single mother who fled the bonding council's directive, that got you a shiny stamp of exile, a revoked identity thread, and a complimentary cold shoulder from most of the galaxy. "Mom," Liney said, tugging on her sleeve. "That sign says they need a receptionist/caffeine synth operator." Sri squinted. "It also says, must be humanoid or better." "That's not a job posting. That's a speciesist burn." They passed a trio of security drones huddled around a street vendor's grill. One of them whistled at her. Not a catcall. A literal scan whistle, targeting her for illegal biostatus. The handheld device beeped once and fizzled. "Too broke to track," she muttered. It wasn't until they reached the very edge of the service district that Liney stopped abruptly. In front of them, jammed between a noodle bar that boasted authentic Jovian slime balls and a tattoo parlor advertising personality chip etchings, sat a lopsided shop with a sign that blinked on and off with exhausted effort. "Theo's interspecies repair. If it sparks, we fix it." Usually, there was a crash inside, followed by the unmistakable sound of someone yelling. That was not meant to do that. A puff of purple smoke wafted through a ventilation grate shaped like a laughing face. "Should we go in?" Liney asked. Statistically speaking, walking into random explosive environments is how side characters die. "Cool. But we're main characters, right?" Before Sri could answer, the door whooshed open and a man stumbled out, human, unshaven, mid-30s if measured in Earth years, or undercooked if measured by fashion sense. His tool belt was a disaster. One of his boots sparked. His hair looked like it had negotiated a failed peace treaty with gravity. Then he tripped over Liney. There was a flurry of limbs, a loud thud, and a heartfelt, "AGH. Kid, why are you so tiny and positioned at knee level?" "I'm adorable," Liney replied from the pavement. Theo blinked at her, then at Sri, then back at Liney. "Aye, that's fair." Sri helped him up while trying not to wince at the static discharge, clinging to his elbow. "Apologies. She's been perfecting the art of stealth collision." Theo glanced between them again, squinting. "You two from around here?" "Define around." "Planet. Star system. Realm of financial plausibility." Sri gave a short, brittle laugh. "We're from none of the above." "Ah." He rubbed the back of his neck. "Well, you didn't explode anything yet, and you seem marginally more competent than my toaster. So, want a job?" There was a long pause in which Sri's brain performed a background check, a safety assessment, and a dignity scan. All came back inconclusive. "What's the catch?" she asked. Theo gestured toward the interior of the shop. "You'll see. But also, I can't pay much. Or at all. But I have snacks." Liney whispered, "Take it." He's got the good sarcasm. Sri sighed. "Fine. But if anything bites me, I'm leaving." Inside, the shop was a kaleidoscope of chaos. Guts of machinery hung from the ceiling like metallic entrails. Something in the back corner was softly humming the theme to Space Titanic. A spherical cleaning bot kept bumping into the same chair. The chair was winning. Gary, the toaster, sat atop a counter. "You must be the new victims. I mean hires. Do you have to speak?" Sri asked. "Only during dramatic pauses," Gary replied. Theo threw his arms wide. "Welcome to the team. Don't touch the red lever. Ever. Not even if it begs." "Why does the lever beg?" "Because I gave it sentience and poor impulse control." Liney wandered off toward a corner filled with glowing wires and a vending unit labeled Snacks Plus with a skull symbol. Sri grabbed her back before she could touch anything. "So," she said, already regretting everything, "where do I start?" Theo pointed to a console that looked part spaceship, part waffle iron. "Translate that before it eats us." It chirped menacingly. Sri sighed. "I miss paperwork." Liney, chewing something crunchy and suspiciously glowing, said, "I don't." And thus began the least probable employment contract in this quadrant of the galaxy. Theo's shop had no concept of silence. Even at the tail end of the fourth work cycle, when most of Nuvatera's neon had dimmed to conserve planetary energy, and even the bars had stopped playing sentient jazz, the shop buzzed, clicked, hissed, and occasionally screamed. Gary the toaster was mid-argument with a vacuum cleaner over territorial boundaries. "I live on this counter. You glorified dust sniffer." "Bzzz. Boundaries are an illusion." Theo lobbed a wrench across the room. Not at either of them, just into the general atmosphere as a warning shot. It hit a stack of disassembled beverage printers, and somehow made them hum the chorus of "Don't Stop Believin'." Sri ducked instinctively and glared. "You have got to label your weapons fire." Theo popped up from behind a tangled mess of cooling tubes and blinking circuits, grinning like someone who definitely wasn't certified for what he was doing. That was not weapons fire. That was ambience. It nearly decapitated me. Again, ambience. Dangerous. Moody. Builds tension. Sri pinched the bridge of her nose. "Your ambience gives me mild trauma." He shrugged. "Welcome to the aesthetic." She returned her attention to the sputtering communication console on the bench. It belonged to a diplomatic skiff owned by a Nuvian trader whose idea of polite conversation involved throwing live beetles at people. The device had been speaking only in Carthan curse words for 3 hours. She'd narrowed the problem down to a corrupted syntactical loop in its multilingual processor and an overconfident sarcasm subroutine. "So what's the issue?" Theo asked, peering over her shoulder. "It thinks everyone who talks to it is its ex-mate." "Including itself? Especially itself." "Yikes." Theo whistled and took a swig from a container labeled, "Probably not toxic." His eyebrows twitched. "That's new." Liney entered from the back, wearing one of Theo's oversized tool aprons and dragging a bucket full of spark plugs, glowing rods, and something that may have once been alive. "Mom, the storage room is breathing again." "Tell it to stop." "I did." It giggled. Sri groaned and stood. "Remind me again why we're still working here." Theo opened his arms, like a host welcoming someone to a game show called Welcome to Your Bad Decisions. "Because where else are you going to get paid in free snacks, second-hand dignity, and occasional feelings?" "I haven't been paid." "Ah, so you've been upgraded to the pure experience." The door opened with a hiss. A Zorvian customer slithered in, 3 meters long, encased in an exosuit that pulsed with LED distress symbols. They held up what looked like a portable grooming pod for spiny reptiles. This device made my pet resemble a melted tire. Theo stepped forward. "Let me see it." He took the unit, flipped it upside down, and sniffed it. "Yup. Burnt firmware. Classic. I demand a refund." "You didn't buy it here." I demand satisfaction. We sell that too. It's in the vending machine. Next to despair. The Zorvian narrowed all 6 of their eyes. You mock me. Theo grinned. Professionally. Sri stepped between them, ears flicking upward. My associate suffers from a condition known as irrepressible wit. I will personally oversee the diagnostics. Please enjoy a complimentary stress sphere while you wait. She handed the Zorvian a glittery ball that made soothing whale noises when squeezed. The Zorvian hissed, then squeezed. Huh. Satisfied, they moved to the waiting area, where Liney offered them a jelly stick and told them about the time Gary caught fire and blamed it on religious enlightenment. Theo exhaled. You're terrifyingly good at this. I used to smooth peace talks between warring star clans with nothing but a smile and a thread of paperwork. This is easier. Less risk of combustion. Marginally. He picked up a broken circuit board and gestured toward her. Still, you're incredible. Like, if I were a space empire, I'd surrender. She raised an eyebrow. Are you flirting with me using imperial metaphors? He looked down at the board. I was going to say something about trade agreements next. You're lucky I'm desperate for groceries. The day wore on. The toaster tried to unionize. The vacuum ascended briefly to a higher plane of sentience, and then collapsed. The Zorvian left satisfied, though their pet now resembled a glamorous fire hazard. Later, when the shop was quiet, only softly buzzing from a pile of partially sedated machines, Theo and Sri sat on the floor beside the open cooling unit. She nursed a cup of semi-coffee. He nursed a minor wrist burn. So, he said, staring at the flickering ceiling bulb. You ever miss it? She didn't have to ask what. Sometimes. I miss structure. Respect. Knowing I could afford socks. He nodded. Socks are underrated. And sometimes I don't miss anything. Especially not the way they looked at me once I made a choice they didn't like. He glanced over. Well, for what it's worth. I like your ears. She snorted. Of course you do. Humans have a thing for weird features. I've seen your media. Seriously. They twitch when you're thinking. It's kinda great. A long pause. I can't offer you much, he said finally. Not credits. Not safety. Not anything a smart person would bet their life on. But you're offering anyway. He shrugged. I'm not a smart person. Sri looked down at her cup. Well then, lucky for you, neither am I. Gary interrupted from across the room. Can I be the best man if you two ever make terrible romantic decisions? Theo threw the empty coffee cup at him. Liney called from the back. Can I stay up late if you fall in love? Sri replied. Absolutely not. Theo added, but we'll lie to you and pretend you can. The ceiling flickered. Somewhere something sizzled. The shop, like their lives, was still a mess. But the mess had started to feel like home. Liney was building a robot out of junk again. I'm calling him Smasher, she declared, holding up a welded-together disaster of old servo limbs, a music player with sentience issues, and a blender base still stained with something aggressively purple. Theo glanced at it and nodded thoughtfully. Functional. Terrifying. Possibly illegal in 6 systems. Sri peered over her data slate and blinked slowly. Does it need the blender? Liney beamed. He makes snacks and threatens bullies. I'm oddly proud and deeply afraid. Sums up parenting, Theo muttered, handing Sri a cup of steaming, questionably sourced tea. The morning had started like most did now. One appliance on fire, one sarcastic exchange before breakfast, and one emotionally unpredictable customer demanding service with the subtlety of a collapsing star. And then the alert came through. It wasn't loud. It didn't blink red or scream through the ceiling speakers. It just pinged, a small, unassuming chime from Sri's comm implant. Her ears twitched once. Then again. Theo noticed. That the bad kind of ping? Depends. Does incoming high-level delegation from my planet's ruling authority count as bad? He stared. You mean like they just want to chat? Or they're here to drag you back in shackles and make your kid wear formal robes? Honestly, could be either. Liney raised her hand. I vote no robes. I second that, said Gary the toaster. I once wore a bow tie. Never again. Theo stood up, dusted off his hands, and immediately tripped over Smasher. The robot responded by whirring menacingly and offering him a smoothie. We need a plan, Sci-Fi said, standing now, calm in a way that made Theo distinctly nervous. I'm partial to panicking in the ventilation shaft, he offered. It's where I keep my dignity. They're due to arrive in 30 minutes. I'll prep the defensive sarcasm systems. Liney tapped her chin. What if we pretend we're all statues? They'll scan for heat signatures, Sci-Fi said. Then we pretend we're statues with feelings. The ship that arrived was not subtle. It hovered above the street with a hum so low it rattled Theo's teeth, then descended with a ceremony that screamed, bureaucrats with delusions of empire. The delegation disembarked in pristine robes embroidered with ancient glyphs, polished head plates, and expressions like they'd just smelled something uncomfortably sentimental. Jackson led the charge. He looked exactly as Sci-Fi remembered, unwrinkled, unbearably elegant, and emotionally deficient. His ears stood straighter than protocol demanded, a sign of either high authority or a dangerously tight facelift. Sci-Fi, he said without preamble, you've caused complications. She folded her arms. You showed up uninvited. I call that even. Jackson's gaze flicked briefly to Liney, who was now sitting on Smasher's shoulder and eating a snack that glowed blue. Your offspring appears genetically intact. Thanks. I'll put that in her baby book. Theo stepped forward, wiping his hands on his pants and failing to look impressive. Hey, hi, hello. You must be the people here to make things unnecessarily dramatic. Welcome to the chaos. Jackson blinked at him like he was a badly translated pamphlet. And you are. The janitor. Liney added. He also fixes the universe sometimes. Mostly by accident, Sci-Fi whispered. Jackson ignored all of it. The bonding council has ruled. The child must be evaluated for reintegration. Your continued separation from your assigned cohort violates Articles 17 through 31 of the Parental Conduct Accord. Theo whispered. That's a lot of articles. They're very thorough, Sci-Fi replied. Jackson gestured to his aides, who began unfolding a device that looked like a bureaucratic guillotine with extra buttons. The evaluation will begin now. Liney looked up. Do I have to fill out forms? Yes. Is there a test? Yes. Is there cake? No. I object. Sci-Fi stepped forward. You can't just take her. This isn't your jurisdiction. Incorrect, Jackson said. By interstellar compact, any child born under trisector authority can be reclaimed if parental deviation is proven. Theo cleared his throat, loudly, twice, then waved. Hi again. Not to be difficult, but Nuvatera is technically an independent trade hub and not under active trisector governance. Unless you're here with new treaties and snacks, I'm pretty sure this is still kidnapping. Jackson's smile was thin and without temperature. And who are you to interpret galactic law? I once beat a sentient vending machine in a legal argument and got a free soda. I've seen things, man. Gary piped up from the counter. Objection. That soda had opinions. Chaos brewed faster than a warp storm in a bottle. The aides activated the scanner. Smasher activated a blender. Liney clutched a half-eaten snack stick like a weapon. Sci-Fi stepped between everyone, her voice like gravity. This is not happening. Not like this. Jackson raised a brow. And what will you do? Hide behind humans and garbage bots. Theo stepped beside her. Excuse you. We prefer the term morally unpredictable allies. Sci-Fi stared Jackson down. You can take your scanner and your articles and your ridiculous robes and leave. You want to fight? You'll have one. But I've lived through worse than exile. I fixed wiring while someone was trying to cook noodles in a flux capacitor. Theo nodded solemnly. It was a dark time. Liney raised her snack. Down with the robe people. The aides froze. Jackson frowned. Smasher began humming a war song from an extinct species. After an impossibly tense second, Jackson stepped back. This is not over. No, Sci-Fi said, standing straighter. It's just starting. The delegation filed out. Slowly. Bitterly. One aide accidentally stepped on Gary. Gary bit him. Theo turned to her. You good? No, she said. But I'm not running anymore. Liney hugged her leg. We're staying. We're staying. Theo grinned. Cool. So you want to install some illegal counter-surveillance gear in the toilet, just in case? I thought you'd never ask. Theo tested the new teleporter by throwing an apple through it. The apple reappeared across the room 10 seconds later, completely unharmed, except it now spoke fluent binary and insisted its name was Gerald. I don't remember teaching fruit to argue, Theo said, backing away. Gary muttered from the counter. Technically, it's an upgrade. Your apples used to scream. Sci-Fi leaned against the workbench, watching the third failed prototype of a counter-surveillance drone twitch in a puddle of its own confusion. Is the teleporter part of the plan to keep the row brigade away? Or are you just emotionally spiraling again? Theo picked up the apple. It insulted him in hexadecimal. Both, he said. Mostly spiraling. Some light tactical innovation. Liney entered, dragging a toolkit twice her size, and wearing goggles that made her look like a miniature bug overlord. I wired the back corridor with motion alarms, laser tripwires, and one box of stale crackers. The crackers are for morale. Sci-Fi arched a brow. Do they explode? No, Liney said proudly. They taste like despair. Same effect. The plan wasn't a plan so much as an aggressively improvised refusal to be steamrolled by ancient bureaucracy. Since the delegation's visit, things had changed. The shop buzzed with quiet urgency. New clients came, whispering thanks for what Sci-Fi did. Mothers from 3 systems, an androgynous slug parent from Sector V, a gender-fluid synth-raising triplets, all of them grateful, wary, and offering services that ranged from encryption protocols to dubious muffins. The bonding council had noticed. A second alert pinged 3 days later. This one wasn't a ping. It was a broadcast. A perfectly coif bonding council official appeared on every screen in Nuvatera, announcing new, emergency parental reintegration protocols, which sounded a lot like legal abduction wrapped in fancy words. Their tone was smooth. Their eyes were cold. Their smile was forged in the deepest part of a tax code. Effective immediately, the broadcast said. Unbonded alien guardians of minor genetic dependence are to report for corrective assimilation. Theo turned the screen off with his elbow. Cool. That wasn't creepy at all. Very dystopia chic. Gary hummed the Imperial March. Sci-Fi didn't speak. Not right away. Her ears were still. Too still. In that way that usually meant someone was calculating the odds of survival versus the cost of principle. Theo leaned closer. You okay? She finally exhaled. I've spent so much time running that I forgot how heavy standing still is. Liney climbed into her lap. We can run again. I'm fast now. No, Sci-Fi said, brushing hair from Liney's forehead. We stay. That night, they initiated phase Who Knows of the Resistance. Liney designed posters. Bonding shouldn't be binding, and my parent, my choice in 9 alien dialects, including aggressive tentacle glyphs. Theo called in favors from clients who owed him 1 or 10 for repairing absurd technology. A retired Venusian hitman sent cloaking drones disguised as flower pots. A part-time bounty hunter named Mizzy, half-cybernetic, half-baker, arrived with 3 dozen lemon bombs and a tray of planetary cupcakes. Gary, not to be outdone, hacked into the council's official snack delivery drones and reprogrammed them to play protest chants. One such drone full of shortbread flew into council airspace screaming, "Down with ear privilege," before exploding into cookies. The backlash was immediate. Nuvatera's airspace filled with council cruisers. Streets swarmed with formal enforcers, wearing neural silencing helms and wielding scanners that could detect rogue parental emotions from 100 meters. Theo nearly tripped over one of them while trying to replace a flickering light bulb outside the shop. Oh, sorry. Didn't see you over all the authoritarian dread, he said brightly. The enforcer scanned him. Found nothing. Moved on. Sci-Fi stood in the doorway, arms folded. You really don't feel fear, do you? Oh no, I feel it. I just hide it under really bad jokes and caffeine. Gary whirred. Like a coward burrito. Liney installed a hologram projector in the front window, which played a loop of Sri calmly refusing to obey orders, while sparkles rained down behind her. It became viral within the hour. People, organic, synthetic, even one carbon-based cloud, started showing up, not to buy anything, just to watch, to stand nearby, to be part of whatever this strange little rebellion was becoming. Then came the sabotage attempt. Theo walked into the workshop one morning to find a severed wire, a coolant leak, and a passive-aggressive note written in legalese, threatening deactivation. He held it up. Well, it's either a threat or a dinner invitation. Could go either way. Sri took the note and read the whole thing in 10 seconds. Definitely a threat. Gary toasted a piece of bread and branded the message into it. That's not helpful, Sri said. Symbolic, Gary replied. Theo turned to Liney. We need eyes. High ground. Probably snacks. I'll build a surveillance turret out of the mini-fridge. That's my girl. They patched the wires, sealed the leaks, reinforced the windows, and installed a fail-safe defense grid made from a hacked coffee maker and 20 meters of humming plasma string. Every time Theo passed it, it hissed at him. Reminds me of my ex, he muttered. Days passed. Then a week. Tensions rose like dough in zero gravity. The shop became the heart of something it hadn't asked for. Protesters, journalists, diplomats hoping to ride the trending wave. And then the council cracked. They issued an ultimatum. Surrender the child, or face public correction. The message was delivered via a 6-foot-tall, glowing orb that sang it in harmony. Theo chucked a wrench at it. It exploded in confetti. Sri stood in the middle of the shop that night, breathing slow and deep. They won't stop. No, Theo said, but we're not stopping either. She turned. You don't have to stay in this. It's not your fight. He blinked. Not my fight. I've been threatened, electrocuted, force-fed council legalese, and emotionally blackmailed by a blender. This is absolutely my fight. Liney piped up. Also, he likes you. Gary shouted from the back. I ship it. Sri covered her face. This is a revolution, not a soap opera. Can it be both? Theo asked. The stars outside flickered, faint and far away. But inside the shop, the lights burned bright. And they weren't backing down. The trial was held in a floating tribunal shaped like a question mark, because apparently subtlety had been outlawed by the bonding council somewhere around the last galactic cycle. Sri sat in the center chamber, surrounded by glimmering holographic judges, whose ears were even longer than hers, and whose robes probably required their own gravitational fields. Her own outfit was simple, clean, sharp, respectful. She'd refused the ceremonial garb they offered. Too stiff, too symbolic, to them. Liney sat beside her, spinning in a hover chair and whispering, Do we get snacks if you win? Theo stood behind them, arms crossed, wearing his best coat. It still had oil stains and one suspicious scorch mark, but he'd combed his hair. That counted for something. A prosecutor droned on about heritage, protocol, and proper genetic assignment. Their voice was soothing in that soul-crushing, lull-you-into-submission kind of way. By violating the bonding pact, subject Sri has endangered the social fabric of. Theo coughed. Loudly. Excuse me. Question. The lead judge blinked. The janitor, honorary co-defendant, emotional support technician, and spiritual advisor. Anyway, this social fabric you mentioned, what's it made of? Because where I'm from, fabric that tears this easily is usually on clearance. Sri tried not to smile. She failed. The prosecutor narrowed all three eyes. This is not a comedy tribunal. Gary's voice echoed from a pocket speaker. Could have fooled me. The lead judge sighed and activated the testimonial orb. It floated toward Sri, glowing with truth-seeking algorithms and passive-aggressive judgment. Do you regret your decision to raise the child alone? It asked. No, she said. I regret that the laws made me choose between dignity and obedience. Would you consider returning to your caste if offered amnesty? No. Would you consider rebonding? With whom? She gestured toward the prosecutor. Him. He smells like fermented protocol. The orb paused. Do you acknowledge the emotional consequences your daughter may face due to her deviation from tradition? Liney raised her hand. Hi. I'm right here. I'm doing great. I learned 12 swear words in binary and how to hotwire a diplomacy drone. Sci-Fi glanced at her. We'll talk about that later. Theo whispered, I approve. The tribunal recessed for deliberation. 5 minutes. 7. 15. An eternity. Sci-Fi kept her hands folded, her ears still. Theo paced. Liney fell asleep holding Gary's backup battery like a teddy bear. Finally, the orb returned. Due to overwhelming public interest, interplanetary social reform petitions, and 32 trending protest holograms. Theo muttered, You're welcome. The tribunal hereby declares Sci-Fi exempt from reclamation. Custodial rights are awarded permanently. The council's parental structure will undergo review. The room erupted into a mix of shock, gasps, and one faint trumpet noise from the gallery. Sci-Fi stood slowly, breathing as if for the first time in years. The lead judge added, However, should any further violations of civic order. Theo grabbed Sci-Fi's hand. Time to go before they change their minds. They left mid-sentence, which Theo insisted was a power move. Back on Nuvatera, the shop was quieter, peaceful. No riots, no scanners, just the hum of semi-functional appliances and the smell of burnt coolant. Sci-Fi took down the protest signs one by one, not out of defeat, out of closure. Theo was fixing a broken antenna when she came out back. Hey, he said, wiping his hands. Weird question. What now? She looked at him. At first, she said, it was just about surviving. Then it was about protecting her. Then it became about proving I wasn't wrong. And now, I want to build something. With me. She didn't answer right away. Liney popped out of the roof hatch. Say yes, Mom. If you don't, I'll start a whole new rebellion. Sci-Fi rolled her eyes. Fine, but no secret weddings. And I'm not wearing anything with glitter. Gary chimed in from below. I'll officiate. Theo grinned. This was always going to be the weirdest happy ending. Weeks passed. Then months. The shop expanded. Sci-Fi opened a language center for displaced aliens. Theo ran an inventor mentorship program for underqualified geniuses. Liney patented her first security bot. It gave compliments before electrocuting intruders. The toaster finally found religion. It involved jam. The bonding council restructured. Slowly, begrudgingly. But the seeds had been planted. Choice, autonomy, acceptance. The quiet revolution Sci-Fi had sparked with nothing but nerve and stubborn love spread beyond Nuvatera. One night, Sci-Fi stood on the roof, watching the stars like old friends. Theo joined her, handing her a cup of something warm. Still miss your planet? He asked. Sometimes. But I don't miss who I had to be on it. He nudged her shoulder. So, you staying for good? She nodded. I built a life. I bled for it, laughed for it, argued with a toaster for it. This is home. Theo looked down at the street, quiet and glowing. Not bad for a single alien mom no one wanted to hire. She smiled. Turns out, she said, all I needed was one human idiot with terrible luck and decent tea. He raised his cup. To terrible luck. She raised hers. And new beginnings. The stars didn't answer. But they didn't have to. The end.